lot of traders have said, well, we really need the financial group to lead us into a real true rally, but that hasn't been the case this time. In fact, it's been tech that's done very well.
Tech, tech, and more tech. The market loves it. Let's take a look at the Qs. Again, the Qs are the driving force here, making new highs. If we go and we look back in time, you can see the Qs have pushed the prior highs. They have broken out. Most of that driving force, you know, we're going to get into the Apples and the Amazons and some of these big cap tech stocks that really have been just a dominant force for active traders over the last, couple of weeks.
Right. Well, you mentioned Apple. Apple, of course, a fan favorite. Everyone follows Apple. There was a story out today that Apple products are in such demand in China that they have fake Apple stores all the way down to the shirts and the signage and everything. They've only closed, though, 2 out of 5, so 3 of those fake Apple stores are still running. Let's talk about Apple.
Well, it's funny you use the word demand. In the market here, we can take a look at the Apple chart. That's all we have is demand. If you look at this chart going back from mid-June at our prior swing low here at 310, demand, and more demand. This stock is driving higher. Now, that being said, we had earnings last week. We saw some short-term selling, a little pullback, but even that on Friday, buyers came right back and more demand came into the stock. So we are pushing this 400-hour psychological barrier. I do think the stock's a little extended at these levels. Our moving averages are down here. Our stock is up here. This usually speaks to some sort of short-term pullback and or consolidation. So expect with Apple over the next couple of days, you could see a little bit more volatility, a little bit more of that back and forth type action, not the clean breakout. You don't want to be a buyer of Apple here. That's just not prudent risk. Wait for a pullback if you really feel like you need to own this stock. It's the right way to trade it. Well,
there's a lot of analysts that have put out price targets anywhere from $430 to $600. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, if I get in at 400 and it goes to 6, I've made some good money.
Yeah, as a trader, I try not to buy too much into that stuff. It only creates a bias, and a bias can sometimes lead to just destruction of a P&L.
All right, well, Apple did have great earnings. Amazon's earnings are coming up on Tuesday. That stock is already up 17% year to date. So is there any life left in it?
I think there's definitely life left here. This is, technically speaking, we broke out last week in Amazon. A little bit of a breakout early last week. Didn't really follow through too much, but I think as we approach earnings this week, you could see another leg higher here in Amazon. I do suspect, based on this chart pattern, that this stock's telling us it does want higher. So that being said, I think it's going to be a little bit of tough back and forth trading into the earnings announcement, but post earnings, you may see what we've seen in all the other stocks, large gap higher, a la Google and a la Apple. We saw large gaps after those earnings announcements. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw that here as well.
All right, well, you mentioned Google. Google's up next. Google, amazing earnings, but everybody keeps talking about their social network, Google+, even though it's really not a revenue adder at this point. It's just something to talk about. But let's talk about the price of Google and how far that can go.
Well, the Google Plus thing, it's funny. Somebody invited me to Google Plus this past week, and I tried it out. Maybe social media's lost on me. I really am being honest. I don't get it. But that being said, other people probably do get it, and the stock definitely gets it. We've seen a move. Again, look at these short-term rubber bands. The further down you pull it, the further they snap back, and that's exactly what's going on here in Google. Google traded as high as close to 620 on Friday. Just a matter of a few weeks back, 10, 12 trading sessions ago, the stock was trading around 480. So huge percentage move in a very, very short amount of time. Just like Apple, I'm going to say the same thing. Wait for a pullback. If you feel like you need to own Google, it's the smart way to trade it.
All right, also coming up in the earnings calendar is BIDU. Now, analysts have estimates that this income is going to rise almost 88% over last year. That's a huge number. So are they setting them up for a disappointment? I mean, they made the last 3 quarters. They've beat in a row. They seem to keep delivering. Can they keep it up?
The market loves BIDU. It has for a long time. Let's take a look at a bigger snapshot. This is a weekly chart. And you can see just a meteoric rise in price since the beginning of 2009. So we're about 2.5 years into this move. We are at prior highs, split adjusted. This is $1,500. The stock's trading right at prior highs around 155. Like I said, with other tech stocks, this stock looks to me bullish. It looks like it wants to continue to go higher. That being said, with an earnings announcement coming tomorrow, probably best to be on the sidelines. being a buyer up here, again, just increased risk. I would wait till after earnings and wait for a setup.
All right, well, we talked about BIDU, we've talked about Google and social media. Let's talk about CYNA, because CYNA is known as having the Chinese Twitter, which is Weibo. They've introduced a currency called the Weibi because they're trying to make some money off of this thing, like Twitter is trying to make money off of Twitter. So is this a stock we want to be involved in?
You know, these types of stocks, from my experience, basically pretend to, you know, the best opportunity is the short-term opportunity. These are very volatile type of symbols. They have a tendency to move 5, 10, 20% in days, weeks, even hours sometimes. So if you're going to get into these symbols, understand the animal that you're dealing with. These are really, really fast-moving type of trades, not necessarily built for everybody. Technically speaking, CYNA looks good. We broke out here. We saw some pretty aggressive selling in mid-June, snapped back very, very aggressively. Still off the highs up here around 150. And, you know, I think CYNA looks good as a buy for a short-term trade back here into this declining trend line, right around 110. Could be an interesting place to step in. We saw this 21 MA down here act as a pillar of support, which caused that last up move. Let's watch that 21 MA again, which is right around 110 for a potential buy setup here in CYNA. But CYNA looks good for a potential move back to you know, the 125, 130 area.
All right, well, as hot as tech has been, oil, it's been a little bit back and forth. We're starting to trend down again, so let's go to a commercial. When we come back, we'll talk about those oil stocks.